Samsung recently announced the S23 Ultra along with the rest of the S23 lineup. This year's flagship model has all kinds of new features, but how does it compare to the S22 Ultra, last year's model? I'm Jason Cipriani, and in this ZDNET video, I'm going to walk you through why you should get the S23 Ultra or why you should stick with last year's phone in the S22 Ultra. Let's dig in. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time focusing on design and other minute features like that. I will say the S23 Ultra has a boxier, more Note-like appearance and feel to it. The display isn't as rounded on the edges when compared to the S22 Ultra. They both still have an S Pen. They have a 5,000 milliamp hour battery, a quad camera setup on the back, and they look and feel great to use. But there are some big differences here in 2 or 3 key areas that will maybe tip the scale in one way or another for the S22 Ultra or for the S23 Ultra, depending on what your use case is. First and foremost, if you care only about nothing more matters to you than camera quality and having the most pixels, megapixels in your photos, then the S23 Ultra is where it's at. That middle lens there is a 200 megapixel camera that takes some pretty stunning photos from what I've seen so far in my early testing. And what Samsung is able to do is it takes 16 pixels for each photo you take, combines it into one larger pixel that has more information, more light, more depth, data, all the stuff you would care about in a pixel, and it creates some really sharp, high-resolution photos that just look great. Of course, they have Samsung's standard, slightly oversaturated look to them that many people absolutely love and enjoy and prefer over Apple's more true-to-life look. And you're still going to have all of that, but these photos that come out of a 200 megapixel camera still, they just look great. So I kind of already touched on the S23 Ultra's design being a little bit more square and box-like, which is very Galaxy Note-like, and that's exactly what it's supposed to be since Samsung killed off the Galaxy Note. Let's pour one out for the Galaxy Note, and has replaced it with the S22 S Series Ultra model. So you can still do things like when I took the pen out, lock screen notes are still possible, stuff like that. But if you're 2 or 3, 4, 5 years into your Galaxy Note and you're due for an upgrade, it makes sense to jump ahead to the S23 Ultra because it's going to be a little bit more familiar to you as far as the form factor and well, that's really all it comes down to. You're going to have the S Pen and all those other features on the S22 Ultra as well. But this feels, when I unboxed it, the first thing I thought was, this is a Note. This isn't an S20 whatever. This is a Galaxy Note. So if you're due for an upgrade from a Note phone a few years ago and you're ready to make the jump, S23 Ultra makes a ton of sense. So we've talked about the 200 megapixel camera and the design that's more Note-like on the S23 Ultra, but why should you go with last year's S22 Ultra? If you're not someone who cares about having the latest and greatest and the best flagship device on the market, the S22 Ultra makes a ton of sense for a lot of reasons, but the biggest one is you're still getting a very good, high-quality phone, but you can find some pretty decent deals on it right now. If you go to Samsung's website, they play all their trickery, doesn't matter if it's the 23 Ultra or 22 Ultra, with trade-ins and list prices and doubling storage and all of that. But if you take away all the extras, the base cost of both phones is listed at $1,199 for both versions, which is ridiculous. But Best Buy has some promotions where you can get a few $100s off. I saw another one, I think it was maybe through Samsung, where if you trade in an old whatever, you get a few $100s off. So there's ways to get deals, better deals on the 22 Ultra than the 23, and you can end up spending a little bit less money. You're still getting a fantastic processor in it. It's not as fast as what's in the S23 Ultra, but I never had any issues with performance on the S22. It goes, it does what it's supposed to do. So don't get stuck in comparing spec by spec. They're not really all that different when you do that, or if you do that, but don't pay extra just for a newer generation of a processor. Speaking of spec comparisons, when you look at the S22 Ultra's 108 megapixel main camera, which was replaced by the 200 megapixel camera on the S23 Ultra, that 108 megapixels, they do just fine taking photos. And I would argue it's overkill, both of these cameras, but even the 108 is overkill for the majority of people and what they expect and want to get out of their smartphone camera. So if you're not someone who is zooming in on your photos and peeping at the pixels to check out every fine detail, or getting large prints for your wall or for clients, it's your livelihood to have these very, very high-grade photos that have tons of information, the S22 Ultra's camera is going to be just fine for you. It's fine, especially for kids and food pics for Facebook. Like, you're not going to have any issues. There is one area where the camera differences may make a big enough difference for you to go with the S22 Ultra over the S23 Ultra. So Samsung did something that still has me scratching my head a little bit with the S23 Ultra. The front-facing camera, the selfie cam, is now 12 megapixels. That's a drop down from 40 megapixels on the S22 Ultra last year. Samsung says they were able to put in and use a better sensor that takes better photos and videos, and that's why they were able to drop down from 40 to 12 megapixels. But I don't know. I'm going to take a couple selfie videos side by side. We'll label them, which one is which, and you can be the judge of which one you like better. If you're someone who makes a living on TikTok, or is wanting to make a living on TikTok or Instagram, or whatever you need to do for your vertical selfie videos, the S22 Ultra might just be the way to go for you, just based on, it has, on paper at least, and I'll let you determine it on your own, it has the better front-facing camera out of the two phones. And like I said, I'm still scratching my head about this decision. I'm not sold personally that it's a better camera, but you know, Samsung's gonna do what Samsung's gonna do. All right, so here is video from the S22 Ultra and the S23 Ultra front-facing cameras. The S22 Ultra has a 40 megapixel lens, while the S23 Ultra has a 12 megapixel front-facing camera. Both of these are taken at the same time, same lighting, and yeah, I don't know. We'll have to see what the results are like. It looks like this 22 is doing a little bit more smoothing, even though I turned it off. It's still doing some weird stuff to my skin, but hopefully that helped you make a better decision on whether or not you should go with the current flagship that launches on February 17th for $1,200, or you could go with last year's flagship that's been out for almost a year now, and you could get most likely for under $1,000, if not less than that, depending on how patient you are with trying to find sales and trade-in deals and all of that. I'm Jason Cipriani. Thanks for watching this ZDNET video. Make sure to check out more of our videos just like this one at ZDNET.com.